So our last speaker then for the day had a similarly tough job in my opinion, but it was his choice. He's actually been listening as the day has gone on. I think he had a few prepared slides, but he's essentially made his presentation based on what was presented today, and so he's just uploaded his slides, and so he's ready to talk now. And so our last speaker is Carlos Saviani. He's from the World Wildlife Fund, and he was born in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and he received a BS in animal science from the University of Sao Paulo, graduating at the top of his class, and then he later earned an executive MBA from BSP Ratman School of Business. And he's got 25 years of professional experience, which yields a wealth of knowledge on animal protein sustainability, dairy and beef production efficiency, and strategies in marketing and innovation. Today he's a VP at World Wildlife Fund, and he leads the organizational efforts for sustainability of food and animal protein as part of the food goal team. So with that, I welcome him and appreciate your efforts.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Are you really tired, ready to go home? If you stay until now, it's because you're really passionate by this topic. And I'm going to try to be, very light and fun and at times. I wish I could distribute, some beer to you and make this very relaxing for you, but unfortunately I can't. And why we are here today? I mean, we got this objective, right, at the beginning of the session, to identify strengths and gaps in animal nutrition knowledge for optimum human, animal, environmental, and economical health. I think the last four, the human, animal, environmental, and economic health, we could translate by sustainability based on what we heard today, right? Strengths and gaps. Did we speak about strengths? What do you think? Or we cover very much the gaps and the problems and the issues? Because I think there are strengths, and I think, the American, coming from a different country, I think US has a lot of good things to tell and to teach, the rest of the world. Like, for instance, the corn yields and the genetics and the improvements in nutrition of plants and the impacts that this kind of results had to animal protein production. The efficiencies in the poultry industry that we see also in the pork industry that we see across other industries. I mean, look at the dairy yields and the level of productivity the U.S. reach. I mean, I think it was mentioned, the amount of cows that got reduced in this country with a substantial increase in milk production. And that's something that U.S. can export or can help other countries to achieve as well. That's a very good thing, that animal nutrition help or we're active, players on doing. The greenhouse gas footprint that was reduced by 41% because of those improvements. That we could go on and on and on and talk about all the great things, the animal nutrition here in U.S. brought to the industry. And I think there are a lot of good things related to all of that you guys can help the world, to improve, and you can take to other parts and help other countries that are in need, for those developments. And I think you can and you should leverage all this knowledge, this great knowledge that you produce it. But I mean, we are in a continuous improvement world, right? We are always trying to do better. We are always trying to look at, what are the challenges ahead. I like, very much what Dr. Wotek said about the perfect storm situation, where we are in a point where we are seeing a food consumption growth, and I think we discussed this in length, that it's because middle class, it's because of the growth in population. We are seeing a reduction or a limitation, or at least we can say, a fight for natural resources. even with urban populations. I saw an ad in California, asking people to not drink milk anymore because it's taking their showers away, taking their baths away. Climate change, it's another hot topic, and I think there are enough studies showing that it's going to be impacting, animal and agriculture in general production, and the changes in public values, which I see as a challenge, but also as an opportunity, and I'm going to talk more about that based on the inputs that I got from all of you today. So how animal nutrition should address food sustainability? I think we can abstract, the discussion that we had here today on this question. But first, we have to ask ourselves, what is food sustainability? And I think we learned some very interesting things here today. First, when we talk about sustainability, we tend to think about greenhouse gas emissions, right? But is it food sustainability only about greenhouse gas emissions? Yes, greenhouse gas emissions is an important component. Even when we talk about greenhouse gas emissions, we cannot take a simplistic approach to it. And here, it's a ranking done by the USDA comparing the greenhouse gas emissions on a mass base versus greenhouse gas emissions on a per 1,000 calories base. And you see a lot of foods ranked there, and you can see that the situation or the scenario changes a lot when you look at the greenhouse gas emissions per calorie base. And we are producing nutrition here, right? We are focused on human nutrition. We are not selling kilos of meat or kilos of milk. We are selling nutrients to people. That's what people are buying. So we have to look at greenhouse gas emissions in a different way. We have to consider the nutrient value of the foods and the calories they provide. We also have to consider when talking about sustainability, and I enjoy really much, that this topic was brought into the discussion, that we are not only producing animal proteins. In fact, between 35 to 50% of all animals are used to produce co-products. And I was at the National Rendering Association meeting this last Monday, and I learned that they hate when people call, whatever they do byproducts, or whatever they use byproducts. They prefer to call co-products, and I think that's the right way of using it. And we're talking about more than 1,000 different products, including, feed stuff for animal nutrition that are coming from the byproduct, from the co-products. See? It's very easy to get into that trap. And I did that in front of them, and they really hate me. including medicines. So it's, and are we really considering all of this in the way we calculate the LCAs? Dr. Juan, you are here, you are a specialist on this. Are we really considering the value that animals provide, for the production of all those products? Are we really distributing the footprints among not only the meats and the dairy products, but among, all those products as well? And we have to, I think, do a better job on that. So we learned today that sustainability is more than just greenhouse gas emissions, right? It's about the environment, it's about the economy, and it's about the social aspects. It's about how we support people on the planet by producing, animal proteins. There's a lot of people on the planet that depend on animal proteins. So how, the animal nutrition industry could engage, or the animal nutrition sector could engage with sustainability? Maybe the engagement with sustainability initiatives could be a start. I don't know if you should be present there represented by the universities or by your organization or individually by yourselves, but there are a lot of initiatives that you could join and you could not only learn but also contribute for the sustainability discussion. And some of them are really big and becoming bigger and growing every day, like the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. which is now being, how could I say that, Roger? Being now expanded into the country level roundtables. A month ago, we just got the US Roundtable for Sustainable Beef formed, and I invite you to visit the website and to learn more about it. There are already more than 55 members from all the chains of the industry. So we have retailers, we have processors, we have producers, we have civil society represented there, and I invite you to also be members. Even the Rio Olympics is engaged with the roundtables, the beef roundtables, especially the one in Brazil, the GTPS. We have the Innovation Center for U.S. Dairy that also hosts a Sustainability Council representing, which is also a roundtable, representing more than 75, like, right, Juan? More than 75 players from the dairy industry, and I invite you also to learn more about it. In fish, we have the Aquaculture Stewardship Council that even has a certification program. 12% of all the fish that is sold in U.S. is ASC certified already, and there's a lot more to be done. And I think, we also discuss fish, barely not so much, but I think, the aquaculture is a segment that is going to grow a lot in U.S. I was in Colorado last week, and the government and the CSU, the Colorado State University, they are supporting a project that is going to produce a huge amount of fish in Colorado in a sustainable program with hydroponics, a very interesting one. And 91% of all the fish that we eat in U.S. today is imported, and very low traceability. I don't even want to get here on the health issues and safety issues, that are connected to that. But I think, aquaculture has a great potential to grow in U.S., and I think we are going to see that growth happening. So ASC is the place to go for sustainability, and there are a lot of indicators that are related to feed and to how feed is produced and to feeding. Another initiative is the Foods to Market, which is also a roundtable of a multi-stakeholder roundtable with different players of the raw crop industry, and now they're getting into feed. They're inviting inclusively, all the animal proteins to be part of Foods to Market, and they are calculating the LCAs, and they are analyzing, and coming up with indicators for raw crops, and most of them are feed stuff. So that's another initiative that you should be engaged, that you should participate, and it's growing very fast. Talking about participating in roundtables and joining, initiatives that involves other chains of the industry, I think, one key learning today is that we have to break silos between nutrition, genetics, health, crops, even human nutrition, and the environment, and take a more holistic approach. And I truly believe that that's one of the most important things, the most important lessons that we should take with us today. And part of breaking silos, we also have to engage more with society. We had a lot of discussions on how we should do that. Should we do that directly as nutritionists? Should we do that through others? Should we even rethink, the way we communicate and we engage with consumers? But for sure, we need to engage more, and we need to engage not only to talk more, communicate more, but also to learn more from consumers. What are the anxieties? What are the perceptions they have? What are their thinking when it comes to food sustainability? And we can start with this question: do consumers really care, or we are just talking about a small group of NGOs and activists that are putting pressure on the industry to move, their agenda forward? And there are a lot of research out there. This one here, for instance, is from Nielsen. It was done in June of last year, showing that, yes, consumers care, and more consumers care about how their food is produced. And food, in fact, is the product that comes first on the list when customers are asked about sustainability. It's the first one that they want to know more about it. They want to know where it came from. And the thing is that trend is growing. This research has been done every 2 years, and between 2014 and the previous one that was done in 2011, they saw a trend of growth in almost every single part of the world in terms of percentage of consumers that care about sustainability. There's also another interesting study that I invite you to look at called Green Biz. And Green Biz was done by National Geographic, and they have one chapter or one part of the study that is specifically focused on food, and it also shows the same trend. A large portion of consumers and a growing portion of consumers more interested about understanding what food sustainability means, and more interested in learning where foods are coming from. Another topic that was discussed at length here was animal welfare. Should we consider animal welfare or not? Most importantly, if we consider animal welfare, what the outcomes we should be looking at, how we measure animal welfare. Should we, we cannot ask the animals, can we, Roger, if they're feeling all right or not? You can ask, right? You may not get an answer, but so how you measure that? And I know there are some studies even trying to analyze pain and trying to measure wellness of animals. I think we have to look more into that and see what are the connections with nutrition. And also, I heard a very interesting question: how we should feed stressed animals? What are the methodologies and techniques and technology that we can use to feed, stressed animals? But I would go even further and ask you how we can reduce their stress by nutrition. Is there anything that we could apply to their diets that would help them to have a reduced level of stress? And also engage in the discussion of what animal wellness or animal welfare is, because we may see things like this from an NGO saying that the pasture-raised pigs is considered animal welfare. And if you have more people talking about that, it becomes reality, and it becomes a perception in the mind of consumers. And it may not be necessarily true. Weather. We talk about climate change, and I found very interesting that we got to the conclusion that we have to look not only at how animal nutrition is affecting climate change, but also how is affected by. And we're going to see huge changes on temperatures, and also we're going to get some extreme weather conditions, moving forward. And that is going to impact, how crops are produced. It's even going to impact the life of animals. So are we going to be able to raise dairy cows in Florida in 15, 20 years from now? If we do we need to change their genetics? Do we need to change the way they're produced, or even the kind of diets they have? So those kind of questions we have to ask more and more and do more research about it. Degraded soils and nutrition. Is there a connectivity there? What do you think? Do you think that as nutritionists we should be concerned about soils? Rogers showed data that more than 30% of all the land that we use in the planet is pasture, and it has animals on it. And the staggering data is that more than 50% of that land is degraded, totally degraded, with very low levels of productivity, like this one here that I had the chance to visit in the Amazon region in Brazil. They consider this a pasture. And I think they need 10 hectares to raise one animal. But at the same farm, I had the chance to visit this kind of pasture with the same soil and the same location. Obviously, you know, they had to change the way, they had to apply technology to the way they produce this grass. But they can produce 10 times more on the same space, on the same area, with the improvements they made here. And this is also nutrition, right? It's an important part of nutrition. In fact, most of the beef produced around the world, and most of the dairy produced around the world as well, is produced on grass, or with a big portion being on grass. So how I'm doing in terms of time?
5 minutes.
Okay. 5 minutes is okay for you? So feed ingredients from GMOs. We discussed GMOs here. We need to have a definitive position about it, and scientifically sound position. And every time we engage in this discussion, all of us, we should have a unique answer, a strong, unique answer that explains why GMOs are important or not. Otherwise, this is going to become reality as well. Basic science, and I love, you know, this discussion, because I was really engaged, you know, during my university time with basic science, and I'm really glad that this came up, because in Brazil is the same thing, and I think it's even worse. Basic science is dying, and it's really important. It's as important as applied science, and needs funding and support. And every single industry that we look that were in a situation like that, they require, you know, a new system. So you look, for instance, the tax and the taxi transportation system. You speak to every single taxi driver, they were always complaining they don't make enough money, blah 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 blah. And now there's a new solution that is reinventing the way, you know, taxes or the private transportation was done. So do we need a new system? Do we need a new system to support, you know, basic science? Or we're going to be complaining for another 10 years that the funds that USDA or other government institutions are providing are not enough? Use of byproducts, better, more, and new. I think, you know, this is a great area for research. There are a lot of people questioning, you know, the use of feed stuff that could feed people to animals. I think we discussed this at length. This is not always true, but for sure, the use of byproducts, especially by ruminants, it's a great opportunity. Also, we talk about use of alternative feed ingredients. I think we also need more research here, and this is one area that animal nutritionists should be looking at. I think we're going to see a huge growth. There are already companies and big money getting funding or being funding, you know, initiatives on insects, production of insects. Impacts of nutrition on genetics, epigenetics, very interesting field, but needs more research, and another great opportunity, you know, for you. But not only epigenetics. I mean, we could talk about simple things like feed efficiency that have been improved a lot in the poultry and the pork industries, but never been applied for dairy and beef. On dairy and beef, we always select animals who produce more and more and more. Obviously, they become more efficient by doing that. What about the individual feed efficiency? I had the chance to work for a genetics company, and we were in a process of selecting, you know, bulls using, you know, one of the systems that is portrayed here, the Grow Safe system. We found one steer that managed to produce, you know, 1 pound of beef with 4.6 pounds of dry matter, and in average, you know, beef cattle need 7 to 8 pounds of dry matter, and that animal was really efficient. And there's a huge variability out there to be selected for, and now we have the technology to do it. So this is one area that needs research. Genetics focus on heat tolerance. There are some countries already looking into this. Brazil, for instance, with the Girolando breed. And I think we're going to see this, this area growing. And we need to understand the impacts on nutrition. And crossbreeding in general. I think, crossbreeding is something that is part of the industry in poultry and swine. And I think we're going to see more in dairy and beef. And we need to understand, the needs for nutrition when it comes to crossbreeding. Traceability, big data, and modeling for decision making. We also spoke about this, and I think it's a very important area that we need to look at, and we need to find a solution for US. There are a lot of other countries that are moving ahead of us in developing traceability, not only for food safety, but I think it's important also for providing data for research, for us to be able to try and test and see, how our applied research is generating, results. There's one very interesting initiative, again, from the Dairy Innovation Center called FarmSmart that is trying to do that, looking also at the environmental footprints of dairy production and trying to improve them. Lack of labor. We didn't discuss this much here today, but in all other groups, of especially producers that I got engaged with, labor is a huge issue for them, and they're really concerned about it. And I think, because of that, we're going to see more and more automation, and for sure, automation has impacts on animal nutrition, especially because someone said that the animal nutrition is not only about mixing the feeds, right? It's also about feeding the animals. Specialization, consolidation. We had discussions around this, and in this country, in many other countries, I think it's a trend. It's a continuous trend. In India, it may be from 2 animals to 3, from 3 to 4. Even in US, the average dairy herd is still 175 cows, but it's getting more and more consolidated. And some people may think that that's bad, but there are a lot of studies showing that it's a good thing, especially when it comes to sustainability. Waste. 1 out of 3 calories are wasted here in US. And waste may be, it's a threat for us, but it's also a low-hanging fruit and an opportunity for nutritionists. And waste is not only happening at our plates, at restaurants. Waste is also happening at the farms when, for instance, we don't take the manure the cows are producing and we don't give a better use to it. And there are solutions today like digesters that can not only produce methane gas from the poop of the cows, but could even in the future produce fertilizers for the crops in a precision matter, not as it is today. And we had some other topics that I think are also important for us to consider, like the animals are important to human health and animal models are critical to human nutrition. So there's a great opportunity for collaboration between the two. Some areas that needs addressing, like starvation, quality of the cool animals, metabolic overload, and the impacts to animal welfare. Animal nutrition is not only formulating the ration, so we need to focus more research on the other aspects, like feeding, and better understanding of metabolic modifiers and the impacts they have on the way animals are raised. And those topics also call my attention. I think they're all important. So, in a nutshell, I think you guys have a lot of work in the next decade for sure. So it's not for lack of things to do that you are not going to be in this important to this industry. You have a lot of things on your plate, but I think it's a moment where there's a great opportunity to show the value and to show the importance as people are more concerned about food. So I think it's a great moment in our lives to not only show but to to prove, you know, to society the importance of animal nutrition and the value that you guys can deliver, you know, to the world. And most important, as a final message, we need to keep the new talents interested in food production and in animal nutrition. Otherwise, this room will be empty in 10 years. Thank you, Jean. Thank you.